Did you ever end up in detention hall for misbehaving in junior high or high school? Well, once I managed to avoid it by accepting an unusual punishment. It ended up being worse than detention hall, and it's one that I will never forget. Here's how it went down. Being the youngest of 4 children in my family, I had a bit of a reputation even before I got to school. It wasn't my reputation, it was the reputation of my siblings that was cast down to me. My older siblings weren't exactly rebels, but they did know how to push the envelope of behavior. Actually, it was just my older brother and sister. My middle sister was actually pretty well behaved, but don't tell her that. So by the time I got to school, in spite of the fact that my father was the principal at the elementary school, my family name was somewhat associated with mischievous behavior. Now, in my small Wisconsin town, everybody had a side hustle. Of course, it wasn't called a side hustle back then. For example, in addition to being the elementary school principal, my father in the summer drove pea harvesters to harvest peas, sold beef and vegetables off our farm, sold encyclopedias door to door, and also sold tombstone grave markers. But he found out that that was a dying business. The janitor at my high school, let's call him Mr. Ness, he actually owned a chicken egg farm. So naturally, kids being the geniuses that they are, gave him the nickname of Chicken Ness. And every time that he passed down the hallway, a chorus of clucking would erupt behind his back. It was like the school had turned into a barnyard. Of course, Mr. Ness could never catch anyone red-handed because this clucking went on behind his back. And this tradition went on for years, passed down from class to class. One day in 6th grade, the heating unit in our classroom broke. The teacher called the office to have it fixed, and sure enough, Mr. Ness came into the classroom. As soon as he stepped through the door, the mocking began. The clucking spread like wildfire, and soon you would have thought that you were actually in a henhouse. Now, I won't say that I wasn't involved, but I certainly was not the only one. So he fixed the heating unit and left, and the day went on without incident, or so I thought. Later in the day, the dreaded announcement came over the PA system.
Please send Fuji and Kevin to the office.
Now, Fuji wasn't his real name. That was his nickname, and that's just what I'm going to call him in the video. So Fuji and I looked at each other and said, uh-oh, this cannot be good. And we picked up our stuff and went to the office. So we went into the principal's office and sat down. He looked at us and said,
Mr. Ness said that kids were clucking behind his back while he worked on the heater in class. He specifically identified you two as being the culprits. That behavior is disrespectful and will not be tolerated here at my high school.
My stomach dropped. How could he possibly single us out of the entire class of clucking chickens? I had the sinking suspicion that the only reason I was there because of my family reputation. Then came the twist. We were offered a choice.
I will give you a choice for your punishment. You can either serve a 2-hour detention tomorrow night after school, or you can come to my office immediately after school tomorrow, and for 15 minutes you will sit in my office, and since you like clucking like chickens, you will cluck like a chicken for 15 minutes.
15 minutes versus 2 hours? That seemed like a bargain. Fuji and I eagerly agreed to the alternative punishment, thinking we would be off the hook quickly. But we had no idea what was coming. The next day, after school, when we arrived for our punishment, things took an unexpected turn. Instead of being tucked away in the back office, the principal put us in the front office, right by all the windows. Anyone that was coming or going could see us. The humiliation began as we were forced to cluck like chickens in front of everybody. But even that wasn't the worst of it. The principal had notified every teacher of the building of our upcoming punishment, and so one by one, they all came to gawk and laugh at us. They paraded by the office, pointing, laughing, and shaking their heads. They were having a great time. We were putting on a show for the entire school staff. But even that wasn't the end of it. The principal picked up the phone and dialed my dad's office and put me on speakerphone. Once my dad got on the line, he said,
I thought you would like to hear your son's punishment firsthand.
So there, Fuji and I sat, clucking into the phone, while my dad sat in his office, listening to every second of my embarrassment. And I'm sure he was embarrassed also. Our 15 minutes felt like an eternity, and when it was over, we were given the final warning.
If you ever disrespect Mr. Ness again, it will be 30 minutes of clucking like a chicken.
Needless to say, whenever Mr. Ness walked by in the hallway after that, I kept my cluckers shut.